As a heads up, this video contains spoilers for Lord of the Flies, Kaiji, Battle Royale, and Squid Game. In The Anatomy of Genre, Hollywood script consultant John Truby states that most modern stories are a combination of 2, 3, or even 4 genres, and that the storytelling strategy of mixing genres has been responsible for the success of hit movies and best-selling books since George Lucas used it in Star Wars. And Truby's observations certainly ring true for Blue Lock. If I were to dissect the generic DNA that makes up our favorite football comic, I would identify 3 major strands. Blue Lock uses the subject matter of sports manga, but its matches are presented through the framework of a shounen battle manga, whereas its setting is that of a battle royale. And in my view, it's this delectable cocktail of genres that explains much of Blue Lock's success, and each of these strands is worth disentangling in its own right. So for this video, I want to hone in on one of these genres in particular, and have a deeper look at why Blue Lock is presented as a battle royale. Hello? My name is Sean, and I basically see the social contract between myself and you viewers as follows. I offer you regular deep dives on Blue Lock's characters, themes, and story structure. And in return, you let me indulge in literary wankery like this every few months. But before I discuss Blue Lock, I have to set out what I mean by Battle Royale, and why this is a useful lens to view the Blue Lock manga. The term Battle Royale is derived from the 1999 Japanese novel by Koushun Takami with the same name, that was subsequently adapted into a feature film by Kenta Fukasaku. The basic premise of Battle Royale is that a class of middle school students is transported to a deserted island, where they are forced to kill each other off until only one of them is left standing. Its title then became the moniker of other media with similar stories. And even on the surface level, Blue Lock clearly falls into this category. From its very inception, the Blue Lock program is presented as an elimination game where 300 contestants will compete until only one remains. And while they might not literally fight to the death, their situation is pretty much the football equivalent of a deathmatch. Those who are eliminated from Blue Lock will forever lose the right to represent Japan in the World Cup. But there are also smaller details that strongly evoke Battle Royale genre conventions. For instance, let's look at Imamura's reactions when Ego announces the game of tag in chapter 2. He finds that the doors are locked, that there is no way to escape, and he's in denial about the whole elimination aspect. All of this is standard fare in elimination game stories. When the participants realize that they're forced into a cruel, dehumanizing battle royale, they typically seek ways out, to flee from their captivity or deny the reality unfolding around them, before they can accept that they have no choice but to fight to the death. Imamura isn't facing a real life or death situation and would have little reason to actually flee from the Blue Lock facility. Rather, his reaction is an allusion to Battle Royale story beats and serves to highlight that we readers should be viewing this as the equivalent of a deathmatch. Okay, so Blue Lock can be classified as a Battle Royale type story, but that observation is really only the tip of the iceberg. To explain what I mean, I need to turn once again to John Truby. Truby observes that each of the various genres is a unique window upon how a particular aspect of the world works and how best to confront it, and thereby each genre offers a unique philosophy for how to live well. That's going to be the main issue I want to explore in this video. Blue Lock is not just a battle royale because its writer Muneyuki Kaneshiro thinks battle royale stories are cool, or because the setting offers the story a sense of stakes and tension. Although all of that is of course very much the case. Instead, the point I want to make in this video is that Blue Lock is written as a battle royale because battle royale stories are associated with a particular series of questions and philosophies that are uniquely suited as a vehicle for the ideas that Blue Lock aims to explore. To make sense of this, I first want to turn to the story that can be considered the grandfather of the battle royale genre. William Golding's seminal 1954 novel, Lord of the Flies, tells of a class of British upper-class schoolchildren who find themselves stranded on a deserted island. But unlike typical Robinson Crusoe-style adventure stories, Lord of the Flies is the product of a time where the world had just laid witness to the horrors of the Holocaust. And at the same time, the Cold War and the threat of nuclear annihilation were looming beyond the horizon. In other words, this was a time where the darkest aspects of human nature had been exposed for everyone to see. And so, the novel recounts the boys' gradual lapse into savagery and barbarism. Left to their own devices, without the watchful eye of society to keep them in check, the boys soon forget about their efforts to maintain a smoke signal and get swept up in primitive rituals and violent power struggles. In short, the overarching claim of Lord of the Flies is that civilization is only a thin veneer that barely holds back our irrational, savage, and violent tendencies. It's hard to imagine that Golding's novel wasn't directly or indirectly a major influence on the OG Battle Royale. And just for transparency's sake, I'll be referencing the film rather than the novel, mainly because I just didn't have enough time to read the original in preparation for this video. Anyways, just like Lord of the Flies, Battle Royale revolves around a class of teenagers stuck on a deserted island, hell-bent on surviving and returning to civilization. But unlike Lord of the Flies, which posits a universal view on the human condition, a central concern of Battle Royale is the different ways in which its students respond to the horror of their situation. Some of them advocate for peace and cooperation, others prioritize their own desires, fight out personal grudges, or surrender themselves to the joy of killing. A few devise an elaborate act of vengeance against their captors, and there are even two who refuse to become complicit in the bloodshed and eliminate themselves preemptively. You could say that Battle Royale poses very similar questions to Lord of the Flies, but comes out with a radically different answer. Even among a seemingly homogeneous group of Japanese teenagers, you find a wildly diverse set of responses to their harrowing predicaments. And while the film ultimately rewards the students who stick together through thick and thin, I got the sense that Battle Royale seems to celebrate each and every one of them for settling on their individual course of action, regardless of how sound this proves to be. So now, let's dissect some of these elements a bit further. To start with the physical setting. I've noted already that both Lord of the Flies and Battle Royale take place on a deserted island, and they're not alone here. The same applies to Squid Game, arguably the most successful Battle Royale story to date, which also plays out on a deserted island. In other Battle Royale stories, such as The Hunger Games or Danganronpa, the contestants aren't on a literal deserted island, but they're still trapped in a remote location, secluded from the rest of society. And in my view, this isn't a coincidence. I already brought up Truby's claim that genres offer windows to understanding the world. Essentially, each genre asks unique questions about life, the universe, and everything. Or, to flip that on its head, every genre is predicated on certain axioms. certain underlying assumptions about humanity, society, or the rules of the cosmos. So, if I were to articulate the fundamental truth claim beneath Battle Royale stories and related media, it'd be something like this. By singling out individuals and putting them under extreme duress, you get a clearer picture of human nature or the workings of society. In other words, it's pointless to cast your net across the entire world. There's simply too much noise, too much data to reach any meaningful conclusions. So instead, get 40 teenagers to smash in each other's skulls at some remote location. Now you're talking. That's where the typical Battle Royale setting comes in. The underlying narrative logic is that people are more likely to reveal their true nature when isolated from their community and thereby uninhibited by the constraints imposed by society at large. So with all this in mind, let's finally turn to Blue Lock. One of those aspects that gets easily overlooked is its physical setting. The Blue Lock candidates are transported to a secluded location in the mountains, where they're forbidden to leave at all. In other words, the location of the Blue Lock facility itself is not all that different from the deserted islands of other Battle Royale stories. But more than that, the aspect of isolation is hammered home by the way Blue Lock is very much coded like a prison. The Blue Lock candidates are stripped of their personal belongings, down to their very clothes, which are exchanged for a numbered uniform. Point being, they're made to don a prisoner's outfit, with their very identity being erased in favour of their position in the Blue Lock ranking. All of this is much more explicit in the original Japanese, by the way. The institute here is titled Bru-Roku in katakana, but glossed with kanji, reading Aoi Kangoku, Blue Prison. So the manga's very name is derived from the fact that its protagonists are locked away, but also presumably because blue is the colour of Japan's national football team. By implication, once the Blue Lock is finally opened, Japan will be ready for its World Cup victory. But I'm digressing here. So now let's discuss what happens to the Blue Lock candidates once they're secluded from Japanese society. Now, I've seen a number of people in the community assume that Blue Lock establishes a juxtaposition between egoists and non-egoists, and that the purpose of the program is to separate the wheat from the chaff. But as far as I can tell, that's actually not what the story is showing us. Rather, in the world of Blue Lock, every person is an egoist at their core. Their egos give rise to different desires and manifest in varying degrees of intensity, but every Blue Lock character is an egoist nonetheless. So instead, the purpose of the Blue Lock program is, in my view, to bring out its candidates' latent desires and teach them productive ways to channel their egos. Just think about it. There's not a single character in Blue Lock who hasn't become more egotistical over the course of the story. Some might stumble along the way, but this is inadvertently resolved when they eventually tap into their latent desires. So when you look at, for example, the difference between the Team Z at the start and the end of the first selection, it's like night and day. Their eventual survival comes about because each member of the team is bringing out the best they have to offer by aligning themselves with their innate desires. This is also why Blue Lock's first selection is so interested in the social dynamics of team sports. From Baro rising up as his team's king, to Kuon's betrayal as a mean to flee a sinking ship. The latter is especially notable as a generic marker, since issues of trust and betrayal are a true staple of the Battle Royale genre. This is, for instance, the central concern of Squid Game's 4th episode, where the contestants realize that it's in their interest to kill off the competition in their downtime. And so, a hellish night breaks out where temporary allegiances emerge and shatter as the contestants are embroiled in an all-out murder fest. Similarly, the first arc of Kaiji, a gambling battle royale that Kaneshiro has cited among his favorite manga of all time, sees protagonist Kaiji Ito in a makeshift alliance with two fellow players for the entire game, only for them to stab him in the back when they're presented with the choice between saving Kaiji and earning lavish sums of money. The point is that the extraordinary stakes of a battle royale serve as the ultimate testing ground for an individual's moral compass. Stories like these tease out how far people will compromise on their principles, on their very humanity, when their survival hangs in the balance. And what's so brilliant about Kuon's betrayal is how seamlessly Blue Lock manages to tie its overarching theme of egoism together with one of the most prevalent story beats of the battle royale genre. When it's finally revealed that a member of Team Z has betrayed his teammates, this makes perfect sense within the overarching worldview propagated by Blue Lock. If humans are indeed egotistical beings at their core, it's almost a no-brainer that they would end up double-crossing each other to get what they want. After all, the first elimination in the manga has already shown that even our mild-mannered protagonist has little qualms about sacrificing his friendships to further his personal ambitions. And yet, by the arc's final match, the traitor fully redeems himself by making a final sacrifice for his team, one that puts even his personal prospects of advancing in jeopardy. But interestingly enough, Kuon claims this as an act of selfishness on his part. It's moments like these where Blue Lock offers some of its most compelling commentary on human nature. People might be egoists deep down, but it's exactly because of, rather than in spite of this, that they're able to bring out the best in each other. And all this really makes sense once you look at Blue Lock with the fundamental philosophy of the battle royale genre in mind. The purpose of forcing people to participate in elimination games is to reveal some quintessential truth about human nature. That being, in Blue Lock's case, that egoism is humanity's most important underlying impulse, in all its various guises. This is also why Blue Lock's first selection focuses so heavily on undoing the lessons that Japanese culture has beaten into its athletes. I discuss this in more detail in my video about the power of hunger, so I'll keep it brief for now. But one of the major concerns of Battle Royale stories is the juxtaposition between nature and nurture. Philosophers have debated for centuries about whether our behavior is mostly influenced by specific socio-cultural contexts, or if we're all basically the same under the hood. So for that, once again, Battle Royale stories serve as quasi-philosophical thought experiments on this matter. By showing how much its contestants change when they're placed in high-stakes survival matches that defy the unwritten rules of society, these stories provide commentary on this very question. And as said, the early parts of Blue Lock place heavy emphasis on this duality. From its first chapter, Jinpachi Ego urges his invitees to discard their common sense and rely on their subconscious impulses. And so, everything about the first selection is set up to rebuild their understanding of football from scratch, to do away with all their culturally acquired practices and replace them with tactics that are more in tune with their subliminal desires. So in other words, Blue Lock's overarching message is that culture holds humanity back from reaching its true potential, as it shows us time and again how its egoist strikers attain greatness only once they've fully attuned to their natural inclinations. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have already noted that I've been prioritizing the personal over the political so far, which is perhaps the area where the Battle Royale shines most brightly as social commentary. In many Battle Royale stories, the isolated world of the contest is propped up as a microcosm of the world at large. A good example of this is the dystopian world of Suzanne Collins' Hunger Games trilogy, where the elites from the capital live lives of obscene hedonism and luxury at the expense of the impoverished working classes in its 12 districts. And it's these nightmarish power dynamics that are perfectly encapsulated by the eponymous Hunger Games, an annual televised deathmatch where children from each district are pitted against each other in mortal combat. In that way, the Hunger Games are the perfect embodiment of its world's oppressive power structures. The commoner's suffering in the Hunger Games, just as in the world at large, is all for the sake of providing pleasure and amusement, bread and circuses for the ruling class. We see a similar observation in the second episode of Squid Game. After the first game, the contestants are allowed to go home. So then, we follow its various characters as they leave behind the absolute hell of playing literal death games and return to their ordinary lives. But as each and every one of them observes, life on the bottom ranks of Korean society is just as inhumane and hellish as on the deserted island. And so, most everyone signs up for the contests once more. They're bound to suffer either way, but at least in the death games, there's a faint prospect of winning a way out. In other words, the Battle Royale of Squid Game is presented as an allegory for life in South Korea as a whole, where the impoverished are at the absolute mercy of the wealthy and powerful. So, if we then look at Blue Lock with the expectations of the Battle Royale genre in mind, it strikes me how this football comic actually inverts them in a really fascinating way. For all intents and purposes, Blue Lock doesn't seem like an enjoyable place to be. The candidates are malnourished, forced to endure excruciating training routines and constant verbal abuse, all while living in perpetual fear of being eliminated and seeing their dreams ripped away. And yet, ironically enough, for most of our cast, Blue Lock is the happiest, most fulfilling experience of their life. After all, in the world of Blue Lock, the real hell is being an aspiring football player in the Japanese system. In the various character flashbacks, we're shown the soul-crushing reality of playing in a conformist culture where their dreams and originality are systematically beaten out of them. So, where the usual point of a battle royale is to present some kind of parallel between the situation of its contestants and their society at large, Blue Lock does the very opposite. For the teenage football players who were failed by the Japanese system, Blue Lock is like a gateway into an alternate dimension, a football wonderland ruled over by its resident Cheshire Cat. To put it simply, the two realms couldn't be further apart, and thereby the Battle Royale becomes a viable and even preferable alternative to the dystopian status quo. So, I know this was a bit different from my usual analyses, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. I certainly wouldn't be opposed to making follow-ups about the way Blue Lock interacts with the other genres it draws from at some point in the future, if folks are interested. One more thing. I'm going to be going on a research trip for a few weeks to tie up some loose ends with my academic work, which means that I won't be in the position to film and edit anything new for a while. That being said, I've prepared a few short videos where I expand on some of my ideas from previous analyses, so I hopefully won't be leaving Yaos starved for content. So, If you liked what you saw, consider subscribing for more in-depth Bullock analysis, and I'll be back in due course.